Congressman Paul Gosar from Arizona is with us on the program. Congressman, thank you, sir, for your time.
It's always a pleasure, Cam, and happy 100th episode. You've been there at the very beginning when all this was going down, so thank you so very much for keeping it in the public eye.
Well, thank you, sir. And I think between this appearance and your appearances on Cam and Company on NRA News and Sirius XM Patriot, I think this may be your 100th appearance on Cam and Company. I really appreciate all of that you've done and your availability in keeping us up to date with what's been going on in the House Oversight Committee with Operation Fast and Furious, and then with the attempts to go after our right to keep and bear arms in Congress.
Absolutely, and that's why what we have to do is we have to hold this egregious government in check, and it starts with holding the Attorney General accountable for what he's done against the Constitution, against the Second Amendment.
You know, there are a number of outlets out there that have said it's time for the Attorney General to resign. We're starting to hear some of the whispers that perhaps it's time for the president to fire the Attorney General. And, of course, the House Oversight Committee is going to be investigating whether or not Eric Holder lied under oath before Congress. And there are some editorials out there suggesting, Congressman, that Eric Holder has lied more than once when he's been before you and the other members of the House Oversight Committee.
Well, if you go back to when he was back in 2011, when he was talking about knowing about Fast and Furious, he knew about it 2 weeks before that, and then we find out 10 months earlier than that, Cam. So, we were on that every step of the way, and that's why we've called for his a vote of no confidence in his resignation since 2011.
One of the things that I hear from people quite a bit recently is, okay, well, what happens? I mean, let's say you've got an Attorney General, and let's say we know that he was lying under oath, but the Attorney General is investigating himself. The president had decides that we don't need a special prosecutor. Are we looking at a situation, Congressman, where the American people can know that our public officials are not trustworthy, and yet they're still our public officials? They don't go anywhere?
Well, I think that having the Fox watch the hen house is, egregiously wrong. I'm from Main Street America. I'm a dentist impersonating a politician. And when the rule of law is wrong, it's wrong. And that needs a special prosecutor. And what we have to do, Cam, is hold political appointees accountable just like every other citizen, because that is the letter of the law. And that's why we've got a government run amok, is that we should not allow political appointees to engage in illegal activities. They have to be held accountable. And it doesn't matter if you're the Attorney General, if you're the Secretary of State, it does not matter.
What do you think the chances are of us getting to the bottom of these scandals? I know that, obviously with Fast and Furious, the administration put up a number of roadblocks. We now are watching the courts take up the issue of whether or not some 1,800 documents that the Obama administration refuses to turn over fall under executive privilege. It doesn't seem like the administration is being any more forthcoming with Benghazi or the IRS scandals or any of the other scandals that are out there.
Well, but it's Scandalgate, and some of those things in Fast and Furious, you always stay the course, Cam. And if you knew about 2 weeks ago Monday, the IG's report on Dennis Burke came through, and they forwarded his license to the bars in Washington, D.C. and Arizona for potential disbarment. And so there is stuff coming down the pipe, and regardless of whether this president's going to try to stand up, the courts will eventually give us this information, and we have to hold people accountable.
Dennis Burke, the former U.S. attorney for Arizona, it was revealed in that Inspector General's report that he actually targeted an ATF agent, John Dodson, for his whistleblowing activities. It basically went out to try to smear the guy, right?
He did, and then what ended up happening is that was his second egregious action. He had actually been cautioned earlier on his leaking information, I think, to the New York Post or the Washington Post, one of the two, and he was sanctioned by Assistant Attorney General Cole in regards to not do that. But it was actually found by the IG to be malicious in an attempt to discredit John Dodson.
And again, what happened to Dennis Burke? He was allowed to resign. I understand he got a going-away party. The Attorney General said very kind things about him. And at the time of his resignation, there were still a lot of stories indicating that Dennis Burke himself thought he perhaps had a future in politics in Arizona.
Well, he did, and that's why it's important to see that IG's report and to hold people accountable for the wrongdoings that they came forward. The law is not for just some of the people; it's for all the people, and that's why it's so egregious. That's why I've called for the case to be made against Eric Holder that he's to uphold all the rules of the law, not to pick and choose which ones he wants to uphold.
Well, listen, Congressman, we appreciate all your efforts, and thanks for what you're doing, sir. Look forward to talking again very soon.
Cam, always a pleasure, and take good care of those kids. It was wonderful to see them. Congratulate you, and thanks for 100, and here's to 100 more.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll talk again very soon. Congressman Paul Gosar from Arizona.